Hello everyone, welcome. I hope you are all well. I am your instructor for today. Today, we will be discussing the laws and the institutions that are involved in the fight against corruption. In the previous unit, we learnt about building integrity. By the end of this lesson, learners should be able to 1. Identify the institutions involved in the fight against corruption, and 2. Discuss the various laws and regulations used in the fight against corruption. In our previous lesson, we learnt about building integrity from the stories and discussions by Elom, Kuku, and Auntie Anita. Do you remember the meaning of integrity? Killinger, a scholar, defined integrity as a personal choice and commitment to honor moral, ethical, spiritual, and artistic values and principles. In simple language, it is doing the right thing, being honest, truthful, and fair in all we do. From the discussions, we learned that the elements of integrity are truth, honesty, justice, and selflessness. We also learned that to build integrity, we must build trust and respect relationships, communicate openly and honestly, follow accepted rules and regulations, values and norms, demonstrate responsible behavior, work diligently, admit to and learn from your mistakes, lead by example, stand up for your beliefs, have your own identity. Today, we will be discussing the laws and the institutions involved in the fight against corruption. We will be learning from a seminar Elom's father sent her. Mr. Adade sent Elom to the seminar to help her learn more about corruption. The seminar was organised by Fair Ghana, an anti-corruption NGO. The seminar addresses the laws and institutions involved in the fight against corruption.
Good day, everyone. I hope you are doing well. My name is Baba Owusu. I am the Programs Coordinator at Fair Ghana. Today, we will be discussing the laws and the institutions involved in the fight against corruption. We have a resource person who is a lawyer and also a member of parliament. Let's welcome Mrs. Awate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baba Owusu. Good day, everyone. I'm very honored to be invited to help you know the laws and institutions that are involved in the fight against corruption. You may have heard of some of them. We are going to identify these institutions and where they get their powers to act thereof. Some of these institutions are backed by laws in our constitution. Others are backed by laws made by members of parliament. Before I proceed, can anyone from the audience identify any of these institutions that are involved in the fight against corruption?
Shraj.
That's true.
Public Accounts Committee of Parliament.
That's also true. Very good. Yes. Any other institution?
EOCO.
EOCO. Very good. That's right. Other institutions that help in the fighting of corruption are the Auditor General's Office, the media, civil society organization. We also discuss them individually. The first institution we will discuss is the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ. I will begin by giving you a scenario. Scenario 1. Georgette's boss in the ministries instructed Georgette to divert public funds into his account. When Georgette refused, her boss asked the security men to lock her in an office till the next day as a punishment for being disobedient. When Georgette was released the next day, she went to see her friend who suggested that they report the matter to SHRAJ. Now the question is, why did her friend suggest that they report the matter to SHRAJ?
The Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, CHIRAJ, is one of the main institutions charged with the responsibilities of fighting corruption in Ghana.
Thank you very much. You are right. CHIRAJ receives its power to function from Article 218A of the 1992 Constitution. The CHIRAJ Act 1993, Act 456, was passed by Parliament to help CHIRAJ perform its functions. The Commission has assigned 3 key functions under Section 7 of the CHIRAJ Act 1993, Act 456. The functions can be found under subsections A, E, and F of Section 7. Subsection A addresses CHIRAJ's human rights function. Its functions under the mandate is to investigate complaints of violations of fundamental rights and freedoms, injustice, corruption, abuse of power, and unfair treatment of any person by a public officer in the exercise of his official duties. Subsection E addresses the ombudsman function. This function is to represent the interests of the public by investigating allegations that a public officer has contravened or has not complied with a provision of Chapter 24, Code of Conduct for Public Officers of the institution, and subsection F addresses CHIRAJ's anti-corruption function. This function is to investigate all instances of alleged or suspected corruption and then misappropriate steps, including reports to the Attorney General and the Auditor General, resulting from such investigation. The next institution we will look at is the Economic and Organised Crime Office, EOCO. I will explain the function of this institution with another scenario. Scenario 2. Mr. Ayamga is the head of a rubber production factory. He does not pay taxes. When the tax officers come around, he forges documents to show that he has paid all taxes when he has not. He exports some of his rubber products to Europe. He hides drugs and other products in the packages he exports. One of his workers who knows of his activities reports him. EOCO has been assigned to investigate Mr. Ayamga. The question is, why was EOCO given the assignment to investigate Mr. Ayamga?
This is because Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, has been given the mandate to investigate, prosecute, and recover proceeds of crimes such as money laundering, drugs and human trafficking, bribery, forgery, extortion, smuggling, tax fraud, among others.
Thank you. Very well answered. I have nothing to add. Mr. Ayamga engaged in tax fraud, forgery, smuggling, and drug trafficking. As was rightly answered, the EOCO is the institution mandated to investigate and prosecute cases involving money laundering, drugs and human trafficking, bribery, forgery, extortion, smuggling, tax fraud, among others. 2 institutions that work hand in hand to check corruption are the Auditor General's Office and the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament. To have a better understanding of their functions, let's consider this scenario. Scenario 3. Parliament approves a budget of 3 million Ghana cedi for 2 ministries. One of the ministries is to receive 1.2 billion while the other would have 1.8 billion. The monies are handed over to the ministers in charge of each of these sectors. The minister has received the 1.2 billion Ghana cedi, uses the money he receives according to budget. The minister who receives 1.8 billion Ghana cedi, however, diverts some of the money for her personal use. She buys 2 mansions and 3 brand new cars. The question here is, who checks how monies allocated from the national budget are used? Who checks whether the monies are used according to the budget or not? This is where the Auditor General's Office and the Public Accounts Committee, PAC, of Parliament comes in. Who has heard about the Auditor General's office or know the functions of the Auditor General?
The Auditor General audits the accounts of all public offices.
Very well said. What about the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament? Who has an idea of its functions? Let me use a fourth scenario, which is the continuation of scenario 3, to explain the work of the Auditor General's office and the Public Accounts Committee. Scenario 4. Auditors from the Office of the Auditor General or from the Internal Audit Agency visits 2 ministries. They scrutinized the accounts of 2 ministries. They found out that 1.2 billion Ghana cedi given to the first ministry was used according to the budget allocated them. However, they find irregularities in the accounts of the second ministry that received 1.8 billion Ghana cedi. They then write a report about both ministries and send it to Parliament. Parliament refers this report to the Public Accounts Committee, who analyze these reports. The Public Accounts Committee then recommends that the Agricultural Minister should be subjected to Financial Administrative Tribunal and tried. What can be observed about scenario 4?
The accounts of both sectors was audited by officers from the Auditor General's office. Their report was sent to Parliament, where it was forwarded to the Public Accounts Committee. The committee analysed the report and made some recommendations to Parliament.
Thank you very much, madam. That is very true. That is exactly the function of these 2 institutions. Now let us analyze the laws that empower and enforce the Auditor General's office and the Public Accounts Committee. Does anyone have an idea of any law that empowers these institutions to carry out their mandate? The mandate of the Auditor General is stated in Article 187(2) of the 1992 Constitution, and I quote, "The accounts of Ghana and all public offices, including the courts, the central and local government administrations and public institutions of like nature, of any public corporation or other body or organization established by an Act of Parliament, shall be audited and reported on by the Auditor General." In fulfillment of Article 188 of the 1992 Constitution, which established the Audit Service, Parliament enacted the Audit Service Act 2000, Act 584, and the Internal Audit Agency Act, Act 658. The Audit Service, under the headship of the Auditor General, to audit the public accounts of Ghana and of all public offices. The Act also grants access to the Auditor General to all relevant books and records needed to perform the tasks assigned to him. Any head of an organization who fails to comply with the accounting systems approved by the Auditor General will be liable for any cost that results from the lack of compliance. The Internal Audit Agency Act 2003, Act 658, also established an internal audit agency as a central agency to coordinate, facilitate, monitor, and supervise internal audit activities within ministries, departments and agencies, and metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies in order to secure quality assurance of internal audits within these institutions of state. With reference to scenario 4, these audit services checked whether or not monies given to 2 ministries have been used for their purpose. They sent their findings to the Auditor General, who in turn sent a report to Parliament. Parliament forwarded the report to the Public Accounts Committee. If there are any irregularities, like in the second ministry, as we saw in the scenario, the Public Accounts Committee will make recommendations to Parliament on actions to take against the minister in charge of that ministry. The Public Accounts Committee consists of not more than 25 members, and it is chaired by a member who is not a member of the party that holds that executive power. This is to ensure that the party in executive who controls public funds does not also become judge and prosecutor in its own case. The recommendations of the Public Accounts Committee sent to Parliament can be enforced by the Financial Administration Tribunal established under the Financial Administration Act 2003, Act 654. The Financial Administration Act, Act 654, 2003, regulates the financial management of the public sector. The Financial Administration Act provides for the establishment of Financial Administration Tribunal, FAT, with the jurisdiction to 1. Hear and determine matters that fall for determination under this Act. 2. Enforce recommendation of the Public Accounts Committee on the Auditor General's report as approved by Parliament. 3. Enforce contracts and bonds entered into in pursuance of this Act. 4. Make such orders as it considers appropriate for the recovery of monies, assets or other property due to the state. 5. Prohibit any individual, whether a public officer or not, from managing public accounts or funds if the individual is unqualified professionally or has been persistently negligent in the management of public funds. 6. Prohibit any person from participating as a bidder in any government procurement or contract where the person has a record of defrauding the state. There are two more institutions that help in the fight against corruption. The first is the media, and the second are civil society organizations. Do we all agree that the media is very instrumental in the fight against corruption? If you agree that the media helps to fight corruption, can you tell me how?
The media contributes to the fight against corruption by raising awareness of causes and effects of corruption on society. The media also exposes corrupt practices through investigative journalism and reporting.
Thank you very much, sir. You have said it all. Article 162(1) of the 1992 Constitution guarantees the freedom and independence of the mass media. I would also add that the media crusades on alleged corruption involving top government officials have also prompted the government to direct SRAJ to investigate the allegations. An example is the court case of SRAJ versus Dr. Richard Annan, a former Minister of State. Finally, the last institution we will look at are civil society organizations. Does anyone here know of any civil society organizations that help in the fight against corruption?
Yes, some of these organizations are Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, GACC, the Ghana Integrity Initiative, GII, a local chapter of Transparency International, Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, and Institute of Economic Affairs, IEA.
Now that we have exhausted the institutions that help in the fight against corruption, let's take a look at the laws that help in the fight against corruption. We have already made mention of the 1992 Constitution, the Audit Service Act 2000, Act 584, the Internal Audit Agency Act, Act 658, and the Financial Administration Act 2003, Act 654, in our discussion above the institution that help in the fight against corruption. Other laws that help in the fight against corruption include Public Office Holders, Declaration of Assets and Disqualification Act, Act 550, and the Whistleblower Act 2006, Act 720. We will look at these laws and the 1992 Constitution. First of all, let's look at the 1992 Constitution. Does anyone remember or know any provision in the Constitution that helps to fight corruption?
Yes, I know of Article 218A and Article 284 of the 1992 Constitution. Article 218A of the 1992 Constitution has provided for the establishment of SRAJ. SHRAJ, under this mandate, is to investigate complaints of violations of fundamental rights and freedoms, injustice, corruption, abuse of power, and unfair treatment of any person by a public officer in the exercise of his official duties. Article 284 in Chapter 24 of the Constitution also states that a public officer shall not put himself in a position where his personal interest conflicts or is likely to conflict with the performance of the functions of his office. The chapter also provides for the declaration of assets and liabilities by public officers on assumption of office every 4 years and upon leaving office.
Yes, you are very right. Thank you very much. Any other provision in the Constitution that fights corruption? In Chapter 6 of the Constitution on Directive Principles of State Policy, it is stated in Article 358 that the state shall take steps to eradicate corrupt practices and the abuse of power. Republic of Ghana, 1992. Also, in Article 371 of the Constitution, it is stated that the state shall endeavor to secure and protect a social order founded on the ideals and principles of freedom, equality, justice, probity, and accountability. Finally, the Constitution also establishes independent constitutional bodies with mandates which are targeted at ensuring that the public resources are well managed and accountability is maintained. One of such bodies is the Office of the Auditor General, established under Article 187 of the Constitution, which is mandated to audit the public accounts of Ghana and of all public offices as a way of ensuring that corrupt practices are uncovered. The last two laws we will look at is the Public Office Holders Declaration of Assets and Disqualification Act, Act 550, and the Whistleblower Act 2006, Act 720. I will use a fifth scenario to explain how these two laws work. Scenario 5. Mr. Nkrumah is the Member of Parliament for his constituency. He has also been appointed as a minister. 6 months before assuming office, he was asked to declare all his assets and liabilities, which he did. A few months after assuming office, a former subordinate of his, Auntie Effie, reports to the police that Mr. Nkrumah made a lot of assets illegally while they worked together at one of the ministries some years ago. He was alleged to have embezzled money as well as take bribes. This matter was further reported to the Commission of Inquiry, who found Mr. Nkrumah guilty. He was subsequently disqualified from holding any public office position. The question I would like to ask is it necessary that public officials declare their assets and liabilities before holding office?
Yes, it is necessary that they declare their assets and liabilities so that we can easily know when they enrich themselves with public wealth.
Are there any laws to enforce this declaration of assets and liabilities? Well, the Public Office Holders Declaration of Assets and Disqualification Act, Act 550, 1998, is what gives effect to the Code of Conduct contained in Chapter 24 of the 1992 Constitution. 1. The Act demands that public office holders declare their assets and liabilities and submit the forms to the Office of Auditor General. The declaration shall be made by the public officer: A. Before taking office, B. At the end of every 4 years, and C. At the end of the term of his office, and shall in any event be submitted not later than 6 months of the occurrence of any of the events specified in this subsection. 2. The Act also provides that a person be disqualified from holding public office if a commission of inquiry has found that whilst holding public office, he or she: A. acquired any asset unlawfully, or B, defrauded the state, or C, willfully and dishonestly or corruptly acted in a manner prejudicial to the interest of the state, or D, knowingly made a false declaration of his assets, properties, or liabilities. This provision explains why it was required of Mr. Nkrumah to declare his assets and liabilities before assuming office. It also explains why he was disqualified from holding any public office when it was found out that he had engaged in corrupt acts.
Finally, I would like to ask, is there any law that encourages or protects the actions of Auntie Ife, the former subordinate of Mr. Nkrumah?
Yes, the Whistleblower Act 2006, Act 720, will protect Auntie Ife. This act provides for the manner in which individuals disclose information that relates to unlawful or other illegal conduct or corrupt practices of others. This act also provides for the protection against victimization of persons who make these disclosures.
To provide funds for the payment of rewards to whistleblowers. That is very true, madam. Thank you. Another significant development under the Act is the establishment of the Whistleblower Reward Fund to provide funds for the payment of rewards to whistleblowers. An encouraging aspect of the Act is that the Act does not only seek to protect whistleblowers, but also to reward them on the following conditions. A whistleblower who makes a disclosure that leads to the arrest and conviction of an accused person shall be rewarded with money from the fund. B. A whistleblower whose disclosure results in the recovery of an amount of money shall be rewarded from the fund with I. 10% of the amount of money recovered, or II. The amount of money that the Attorney General shall, in consultation with the Inspector General of Police, determine. We have come to the end of this seminar organized by Fair Ghana on the laws and institutions that help fight against corruption. Thank you for coming, and thank you for the time. Before I leave, does anyone have any question? In the absence of any question, I would hand over to Mr. Baba Owusu.
Thank you all for coming. I hope we have all learnt a lot from the discussion led by Mrs. Awate. Can anyone mention the institutions that help in the fight against corruption?
The institutions that help in the fight against corruption are Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, Economic and Organized Crime Organization, Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, Auditor General's Office, the media, civil society organizations.
Thank you so much, Madam. Now, who can tell us the laws that help in the fight against corruption?
The laws that help in the fight against corruption are the 1992 Constitution, Public Office Holders Declaration of Assets and Disqualification Act, Act 550, the Audit Service Act 2000, Act 584, the Financial Administration Act, Act 654, 2003, the International Audit Agency Act, Act 658, the Whistleblower Act 2006, Act 720.
I have learned a lot of things that I never knew today, Daddy. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Hello everyone. That is the end for today. I hope we have all learned a lot from the seminar Elom and her father attended. You can further discuss the points raised with your peers, instructor, or anyone interested. Thank you for watching. Till we meet again. Goodbye.